Hello, YouTube, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. This is the second and final video that I will have for you this morning, unless, of course, something pops up and I get a hold of it. I'll bring it to you, but this is the current event issue for the day, or final one. There are 5 articles in this one. All the URLs are listed in the description of this video for your perusal and enjoyment. The first one I have is off of BizPack Review, and it says, Sheriff David Clarke. The only reason I'll be reaching across the aisle is to grab one of them by the throat. Milwaukee County Sheriff David A. Clarke gave us a reminder of why he is so beloved by the right, and in doing so, left more than a few liberal pennies in a wad. The outspoken lawman was speaking at the deplorable party for supporters of President Donald Trump that took place Thursday night, and offered a no-holds-barred description of himself. You may know me, you may not, Clarke told the crowd. I'm one of those bare-knuckled fighters. Say we need to reach across the aisle and work with the Democrats, you know what I say? The only reason I'll reach across the aisle is to grab one of them by the throat. And there is video in this if you would like to take a look at it. Oh, priceless. It says, the sheriff went on to say that the American people have spoken, and you said that you wanted Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. And while Clarke was clearly speaking metaphorically when he talked about grabbing a Democrat by the throat, he's on record as saying he plays smash mouth politics. It goes without saying liberal snowflakes took him literally. The next one I have is also off of BizPack Review, and it says, as a whistleblower ready to tell all to Trump, I know where the valves are to drain the swamp. We'll need hazmat suits. And there's video in this one if you'd like to take a look at that one. It says, a road-worn, devoted Department of Homeland Security whistleblower and author is uniquely positioned to help President Donald Trump do the forensics on what is the bottom of the swamp. Since Phil Haney's book, See Something, Say Nothing, came out, felt and witnessed the rising up of Americans who coalesced at the ballot box to turn this country away from the willful blindness, excessively loose immigration policies, and failed counterterrorism policies in the name of civil rights. Haney says, people knew intuitively that something wasn't right in our government's policies to keep Americans safe. I know where the valves are, and people like me do, the soft-spoken Haney, who traveled to 90 cities, starting in Indianapolis, Indiana, in April, to Omaha, Nebraska on November the 7th, speaking to millions of worried Americans, saying in this exclusive video interview for the Daily Caller News Foundation, you will have to hold your nose, he says, because once you take the water out, then the real forensic work begins. We're going to have to put on our hazmat suits. Haney says the forensics of draining the swamp will yield evidence of decisions and policies made in senior people in the DHS, FBI, CIA, the White House, and the last 8 years, or let's see, for the last 8 years and more. It's very important for the American public to not only look ahead at what kind of president you will become, but also what we were delivered from, says Haney. In his book, he recounts how critical law enforcement records were intentionally destroyed. Draining the swamp will allow Americans to know who and why law enforcement was crippled, and some Americans lost their lives because of decisions some in power made. In this video, Haney discusses how he will begin dissecting a benign sounding fatwa issued on November the 28th after America's presidential election by the Assembly of Muslim Jurists in America, which Haney trained to read and understand the Quran and believes is ominous. It uses camouflaged language and lays the groundwork for violence when certain civil rights policies and groups like CAIR, the ACLU, or the Southern Poverty Law Center are threatened by the new administration. In this video, Haney decries the false narratives former President Barack Obama repeated, such as there had been no terrorist attacks on the homeland during his tenure in office. Haney says the former president gave Americans false assurances. As for the disruptions that threatened the inauguration, Haney discusses those seeking to deliberately create chaos to destabilize America with civilization jihad to sabotage the miserable house of America. These anti-American forces are taking advantage of anarchy, hoping to replace our system of government with something preferable to the revolutionaries, like Sharia law for Islamists or socialism for communists or communism or others. He believes the jihadists have joined forces quietly with anarchists and revolutionaries who were exposed in a new video released earlier in January called America Under Siege, Civil War 2017. To disrupt the inauguration, they're fighting to destroy our nation. For more on Haney, see his previous 2 video interviews with the Daily Caller News Foundation, and there's links to those if you want to see them. It says he also testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee last June and spoke at the National Press Club. The next article I have for you is off of BizPac Review. It says Trump to CIA in war on ISIS. President Donald Trump vowed to give unprecedented backing to the U.S. intelligence community in the war on radical Islam during his first speech as president at CIA headquarters. Trump reiterated a line from his inaugural address saying the U.S. should eradicate radical Islamic terrorism. He insinuated that the CIA's full potential was not put to use by the Obama administration in the war against Islamic State. We haven't used our real abilities, he said, and flatly declared we have to get rid of ISIS. He reiterated the critical role intelligence plays in military operations, saying that better analysis on ISIS will save U.S. soldiers' lives. Repeatedly, Trump criticized the Obama administration's policy on Iraq for withdrawing troops in 2011. Trump indicated he believes radical Islamic terrorism poses a major threat to the U.S. because of the interrelated nature of the havoc it wreaks on society. Former President Barack Obama sought to portray ISIS as a threat to the U.S., but would frequently say it was not existential to the West. Obama cited the figures of everyday causes of death to Americans in comparison to those killed by Islamic terrorist attacks. Trump also discussed the nomination of Representative Mike Pompeo for CIA director and criticized Congress for holding up a vote on his appointment late Friday. He declared that he is a stalwart supporter of the intelligence community and faulted the media for creating a narrative that spat between himself and the agencies, saying that the media are among the most dishonest human beings on this earth. He insinuated at certain points in the presidential transition that the CIA and broader intelligence community played a role in releasing a scandalous intelligent dossier on him, including saying that the tactics harkened back to those of Nazi Germany. The next article I have for you is off of inverse.com, and it says the White House website under Trump no longer has a Spanish option. Any website worth its code has a sitemap. The list of text links at the bottom of each page is issued by a search engine like Google to direct people to relevant pages with the information they seek. Those text links are the rafters of the website. And in politics, they can show just how different one president is from the next. And if the incoming president wants to build a border wall between here and Mexico, don't expect the White House website to be available in Spanish. At 11:23 a.m. Eastern on Friday, this is what the whitehouse.gov looked like as captured by the Wayback Machine, the web page recording service done by the people at archiving.org. The issues column is the longest, with 29 individual issues broken into sections and ranging in subject from rural to women, to Cuba to technology. The sitemap also includes an in Espanol option. In all, it contains 114 links, and there's a picture of it here in this article if you want to pull it up and look at it. It says, as of right now, 1 p.m. Eastern on Friday, the sitemap for whitehouse.gov looks much, much shorter with just 38 links. Gone is the en Espanol option, which, given Trump's opinion of Spanish-speaking people, doesn't immediately seem like an oversight. While shorter, Trump's branding and policy positions do show up. There are links to pages titled America First Energy Plan, America First Foreign Policy, Bring Back Jobs and Growth, Making Our Military Strong Again, and so on. Switching all the digital accounts from one president to another is a big job, and so is archiving the digital presence and outgoing president. It's also probable that some of the digital platforms set up by Obama, and arguably America's first social media president, won't be touched and possibly deleted by Trump. There's the White House Spanish language Twitter account, and they have the thing here that says the @ La Casa Blanca. While Obama and his predecessors, Texan George W. Bush, spoke Spanish with varying levels of fluency, Trump's only ever uttered phrase while insulting immigrants during a debate. The same account under Obama has been archived here at Casablanca 44. The sitemap is an old part of the internet, but it can still reveal a lot. So there you have that article. The next one and final one in this episode and for the day, and I'm waiting for the hamster to get it up here for me. Here we go. It is off from the trenches worldreport.com, and it says Indiana bill would eliminate state marriage license control in practice. It's out of Indianapolis, Indiana. January the 11th, so it's about a week old here, but it says a bill introduced in the Indiana House would end government licensing of marriages in the state, nullifying in practice both major sides of the contentious national debate over government-sanctioned marriage. Representative Jim Lucas introduced House Bill 1163 on January the 9th. The legislation would eliminate 3 marriage requirements currently in place in the state. 1, that individuals obtain a marriage license before getting married. Number 2, that the marriage be solemnized by an individual specified by state law. And number 3, that the marriage license be filled with a circuit court clerk and the State Department of Health. The bill instead provides for marriage by marriage contract by any 2 individuals who are competent to contract in Indiana or otherwise permitted to marry in Indiana. The marriage contract, which can be used for proof of a marriage instead of a license, must be in writing. The 2 parties must be considered competent to enter into legal contract in the state. The contract also requires at least 2 witnesses to sign. A marriage contract can also include terms and conditions as part of a premarital agreement. HB 1163 has minor restrictions, mainly prohibiting polygamy and limitations on duration of the marriage. It also establishes an age requirement, though it does make exceptions under special circumstances. HB 1163 would reduce the state's role in defining and regulating marriage, which has become a contentious issue and places a burden on government officials torn between the legal requirements of their jobs and their personal religious convictions. By limiting the state's role in marriage, HB 1163 would allow Indianans to structure their personal relationship as they see fit without interference or approval. Removing state meddling in marriage would render void edicts of federal judges that have overturned state laws defining the institution. The founding generation never envisioned unelected judges issuing pronouncements regarding the definition of social institutions, and the Constitution delegates the federal judiciary no authority to do so. Constitutionally, marriage is an issue left to the state and the people. As the 2007 New York Times op-ed points out, for centuries, marriage was a private affair. And it says, for most of the Western history, they didn't, because marriage was a private contract between two families. The parents' agreement to the match, not the approval of the church or the state, was what confirmed its validity. For 16 centuries, Christianity also defined the validity of marriage on the basis of a couple's wishes. If two people claimed they had exchanged marital vows, even out alone by the haystack, the Catholic Church accepted that they were validly married. In fact, state marriage licenses were used as a way to prevent interracial marriages. Later, the NYT story recounts, the licenses became necessary in order to subsidize the welfare state. The Social Security Act provided survivors benefits with proof of marriage. Employers used marital status to determine whether they would provide health insurance or pension benefits to employees' dependents. Hospitals required a marriage license before granting couples the privilege of inheriting from each other or receiving medical information. Something rarely considered by those seeking to control the state's definition of marriage is that a marriage license means a person requires government permission before getting married. In America, people generally cannot drive a vehicle without a license. People cannot practice law without a license, provide medical care. Put another way, under a licensing scheme, marriage is not a right nor a religious institution, but a privilege granted by the state and limited by its requirements. Consider this, in the same way a driver can lose their license if they break certain traffic laws, a man or woman theoretically could one day find their marriage license revoked for marriage rules, whether it pertains to child rearing or their religious or political convictions. Christopher Weasley, an associated scholar at the Miles Institute, wrote that a marriage is most endangered when it rests in the cohesive hands of the state. It says HB 1163 was referred to the House Committee on Judiciary. It will need to pass with a majority vote before moving forward in the legislative process. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And that is all I have for you in today's episodes. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that yet. There's a little bell beside that subscription button, and if you click that, a little box pops up that you can check, and that way you'll get email messages every time I put a show up, and you'll stay informed. Have a great day.